Alright, so we're continuing here. So we got the stream already started for a few minutes now, and I'm gone ahead and started up the 112 scripts for Wooden Shears to go ahead and see what I need to change in order to get it updated again, because of course Forge did some changes to the registry system, which we're going to have to figure out, as I don't have clear instructions on how to do the new changes, so it's going to be some guesswork. I have been told that there is two events you're supposed to hook into, one for items, one for blocks. Of course, we only need items for this mod. Some of the other ones will use different events, of course. Well, also, apparently there's an event for registering recipes, so we may look at implementing a custom recipe to fix our OR dictionary support. It looks like this is going to take a few minutes to run. It's been taking 2 minutes so far. So while we're doing that, I guess what we could do is actually work on a few other things. Now, in the last video, I went ahead and worked on the Gradle updater. This did work. I did find out exactly all the repositories that were changed, and even though it pushed a lot of changes up, there was no real problems. There is a defect, of course, in the system here. So let's go ahead and, while we're waiting, just go ahead and see if we can fix that defect. Now, the defect is, of course, really minor. It's down in the write code that is adding way too many changes. So it's down here. So what we do is we actually add a new line to the end. And what we need to do to fix this is go ahead and create a way to detect if we are on the last line. If we're on the last line, we don't want a new line. So this will cut down on the number of changes being made. And that will improve the functionality. So we want to go, okay, if I is less than lines.size, we do that. If not, we just don't do anything. Not the most preferred way. Usually you don't want to inline like this, but I'm not picky on how the code functions. And it's actually want to go ahead and do I-1. Make sure I wrapper these real quick just to do this. If you're ever programming and you're not sure how the order of operations is going to work, the best ideal is to go ahead and just wrapper anything inside of the, what is it called, parentheses? As it's better safe than sorry. If Java recognizes that these aren't necessary, it'll just get rid of them for you. So putting them in your code does no harm to the actual runtime, just to add a whole bunch. Yeah, this is going to take a few minutes to run. I turned off the Gradle build system, or the Gradle daemon build system, and of course with that turned off, all builds, all runtime are going to execute really slow on this computer. Not to mention the more we're running CPU-wise, so having the workspace open, running a stream, doing other things, does actually slow this down a little bit. Not by a significant amount, because of course I do have 8 cores to distribute the load, but it does it enough that you're never going to have a guarantee of running smoothly. Not to mention I also have Chrome open up here, which I should look at another browser just to run the Mixer window so I can see chat, for example. They have an API, actually. I could just make a chat client real quick. It's something that wouldn't be too hard. But yeah, so this will fix the line endings here, and we won't have a new line at the end of that. That, of course, will actually fix the problem we went into. And what I can actually do to show this, what I'm talking about, is if we go to BBM here, I can see all the changes I made. So here's all the commits. This is how I know what repositories I edited and which ones I didn't. And what had happened is usually, if you didn't make any changes, Git won't let you make a push or commit. However, there was changes made, and some of the changes, if we can find, say, for example, Wooden Shears here, were just because there was a new line at the end. So if we pop this open, right there it's actually noting there was no new line at the end of this file, and all of a sudden there now is. There actually is things you can turn on inside Git and Git tools to prevent this from happening. And because I'm using Git Kraken, I lost Source Tree's version of this, and I haven't yet to figure out how exactly you turn it on inside of Git Kraken. But there is a way to get rid of things. There actually probably could just... There's a Preferences tab. Hopefully this doesn't show my password anywhere in here. Okay, cool. They've got it all set up correctly. Authentication, there's some Git flow. UI preferences. Yeah, they don't really have a lot of proper settings in here. I'll have to ask them for that feature to go ahead and ignore new lines of data files and stuff. I know that you can do a lot of other things with it too. We'll be at right now. Oh yeah, 83%. We're almost done there. So we got that fixed up. Part of the plan, by the way, today is also to not just work on this, because I need to get this updated before Wednesday is the plan, but it's not going to take that much time. So we'll go toy with this, and then we're going to hit back on ICBM, as I want to really work on ICBM this week as well. Although I do have a little bit of everything else that I probably should be prioritizing on. I have an exam to finish by Wednesday as well. It's a written exam, so I can do it at home and turn it in. And then I've got 2 labs to do. A homework assignment, which is basically a lab without actually calling it a lab. What else is there? Oh, see, yeah, I also got a program on some Android too this week, which we actually might stream the Android development, as I haven't been told I can't do it, and I can't imagine that I would get yelled at, because even though I know they repeat and reuse these assignments for the class, it is a Practium, and it is designed for you to show your own work. So copying somebody's work, one, it wouldn't really make a difference, and two, it would just it would just wouldn't make a difference. Anyways, let's go open up the main class. Yeah, so we need to go ahead and fix our imports here of that library, because it looks like it failed. Yeah, so we had this failure here, and of course I have to fix this every so often. Actually, I need jar dependencies. And then I'm going to have to go find it real quick, which is in caches, Minecraft, net, Minecraft Forge. We want the latest version of 1.12. Snapshots, and then we just want to grab this folder, come back over here, put it in the top, and then we want to grab these 2 bottom ones. Hit apply, and this should work. Yeah, so what was removed, so the registry method no longer exists as far as I'm being told. Or no, it does exist. It's just, it looks like some stuff was removed. I'm actually kind of confused on this one. Implements, yeah, so we have iForge registry entry here. And it's looking for iForge it's looking for the registry entry. I'm confused. Default implementation. Modders who make extra items should extend this instead of object. So all fields in the interfaces are force static, so even with Java 8 people will still extend this. So we are using this, which means it should be working, so what's up with this? Has a private access. Oh, they made it private. That's the reason I can't access it. So we are going to have to use the registry events. Now I'm trying to remember what they look like, because I saw them and I didn't keep a bookmark of where I saw them at. That's not good when I see something like that where there's an error in their runtime. We may not be able to launch, but at least we can correct some errors here. Let me go ahead and hit build and rebuild to see if there's any errors anywhere else. That's it, so there's only errors there. And this dot set registry name. I can get rid of this, by the way, which I'm going to go ahead and do. Because that was just an artifact of letting somebody else update this. Because what you can actually do, instead of storing the location, you can go get registry name, and it works all the same. But we got to figure out this part. So there is actually an event for this. So it'd be public void. Actually, no, I remember where I saw this at. Now I gotta drag this window over here because I don't want to show the chat for this. But I think one of the Discords I joined recently, they were sitting here talking about this. Yeah, so this is Scala code, by the way, but it does show the events. So there is a function for register, and it goes for each it register block. So what is it? This is one of the downsides of reading code. Like, I actually, you know what? This doesn't really look like Scala. I think it's Scala code. This looks like JavaScript. I know there are people who actually have figured out ways to use different languages for making mods. Here's a better example that somebody was posting. Because there's a lot of mod developers that are up here trying to work on this, but it looks like it is register, then the type, and then the event. So it is a subscribe event. So what we want to do is we would go ahead and just register blocks. Actually, register items is the only thing we need. I was about to implement all of them, and yeah. So is it register? You know, it's register. Yeah, it's register, not registry. So it's this, and then it's block, and then it's event. And we'll have to sit here and toy with this because I don't know how this behaves. As this is the first time I'm looking at the new code. I think it's a subscribe event because this is what this person's using over here. But then you look at a few other spots and they don't exist properly. I guess this is correct-ish. No, it's a little confusing as I'm looking at somebody else's code trying to figure out what they're doing. And you look at this stuff, you don't see any event calls here. So what it looks like you do is just call event.register or getRegistry.register. This looking for a block. Oh, yeah, it's because we put block in there by mistake. And then you just pass in. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this because this is, I think, the best way to handle it. So we'll get rid of this up here. Now, what I've been told, the reason for this is we're going to get to a point where you can actively reload mods in their content. So you will be able to disable and enable mods. You'll be able to download mods from a server and run them. There's also talk about Maven support, so you can download mods via Maven. I hope that doesn't become a really big thing, is that will bypass things like curse downloads, and I really like my curse points, even if I'm only getting like a few dollars at a time. It does help pay for things like ramen noodles. So this looks good, so hit build, rebuild project, and we'll see if it works. And if this is all you have to do, then that's okay. I'm actually one of the types of people that rather have this than have this. If you guys have ever looked at a lot of my code, so if we can actually come over here to what is a really good one to look at? I want to say MFFS is a good example of this. So I have been transitioning to something very similar to what Forge is doing. I have my own methods for loading items, loading blocks, loading entities. This is to enforce in my mods a certain logic behavior. Now, not all of my mods have been updated to this, but if this is something that's going to be continued, then I'm game for that. Anyways, let's go ahead and launch this and see if it'll run. I have a feeling it's going to crash. And then we don't need dev mode on this because it doesn't have any dev mode features. When we do oil lore mod, we will need a dev mode feature for that, but I'm not going to do any of that stuff from the stream today. That's just a kind of a waste of time. What we're going to do as soon as we get confirmed this is working, just so I can test the scripts and everything else, we are going to bounce back to ICBM. I kind of want to get the medium missile implemented this week is what the goal is, but there are some other things I have to kind of work on as well to kind of get the mod functional, is I need to get the missile JSON handled, and yeah, we did crash. So null point exception at custom mesh definition. Shoot. the reason that I'm saying that is there's a load order problem there. Well, crap. I can fix this, sorta. I'm just trying to think of exactly how this would work. So what we're gonna, in theory, want to do is we want to take the pre-init system we have, and we want to replace it with on register. Why do we even have a GUI? I don't know. On items registered. So we want to call this guy from our client proxy. Actually, I just need to copy the top part. Go to the client proxy, rename this. And that way we do our mesh definition at that time. Now I have a feeling that I'm going to get told that this is the wrong way to do it, which I pretty much know. It's just, I can't think of another way around this at the moment without me spending a huge amount of time literally just going and learning how the new Forge code works. And there's not going to be a lot of resources out there because this code was just pushed out there a few days ago by the Forge team, which means nobody's done documentation more than likely on it. And that means more than likely also the Forge wiki itself hasn't been updated, even though that should have been updated almost right away with the new information. Hopefully somebody goes through and actually works on it. Somebody needs to actually just go around and start pressuring developers to actually contribute knowledge towards that wiki, because there's a lot of people that do have tutorials, and there's a lot of people that actually do know how this stuff works. But then you go around and you look at the Forge wiki, which actually tells you how to work on mods, and it's very sparse in information. It has the bare minimum required, and it needs to be stepped up. It needs to be put in there, so there's a lot of really solid examples and really good code in there, and really good just understanding of what's set up. And we... unknown item, wooden shears, okay. So there was a JSON exception. I think I understand why. We're going to test here in a second. We should get an error saying missing item if I am correct on what I think is happening. If we don't get an error on that, then it just means something's funky with the recipes. What do we have? 3 more? 17 minutes? That's not too bad. So we'll probably run this till about 10, unless people show up, and then we'll see about going a little longer. It doesn't look like it. So the plan is, for the streams, is to do a stream at 1 guaranteedly almost every day through the weekend, weekdays. Weekend is going to be more flexible. And then, what is going on here? Oh yeah, we totally crashed, but no such field exception blocks. So we're not going to be able to test this whatsoever. Oh yeah, we're actually not crashing because of our own fault. It's actually GUI's crashing, and I can fix this. Where are you at, GUI? There you are. Remove. I don't understand why it still says testing here. A lot of this stuff is actually runtime dependent. But something got screwed up. Always something gets screwed up. I pretty much want to say that. So let's first fix our registry goof. And I want to say this is supposed to prefix. Okay, yeah, so what we want to do is we want to come back to our system over here, and we want to go, okay, woodenshears.domain. That way we get the mod ID in there, because that's what's missing. That's the reason the recipe decided it wanted to error and say it couldn't load. Oh man, I got so much chat to read through here when I ever get done with these streams. I joined a different Discord, which you guys could see the name down the bottom actually. But Yeah, they've been talking about code and mods and a whole bunch of stuff, and I've been trying to keep up with this. I'm trying to really do a good job at participating, even though the reality of it is I'm practically a hermit when it comes to modding, and I very rarely interact with my fellow developers. And usually when I interact with them, it's because either they want something or I want something, or we're just screaming at each other because we have a difference of opinion. That actually happened yesterday when somebody was trying to tell me, you really shouldn't have high-res models in a mod, and I'm like, I don't really care. I have what I have because that's what the mod is themed after. It's themed to actually have a little bit higher resolution things. It broke again. That should have worked. I don't get it. Unknown item wouldn't. I have this feeling like the changes Forge has made has just broken everything. Let's see if it'll load the world. Wait, it loaded JEI anyways. I don't... Did it... you know what's happened? It probably threw JEI into my run folder. Nope, not there. What the flip? Very clearly he's trying to run, though. Did I not hit save when I did those edits? That's what I think may have happened. Unless it's added in here twice. Yep, it's in here twice. Oh, it's in here multiple times. What the... I regret asking Dmod to actually add that now. Because it's causing problems. This is the reason I don't have NEI usually in my workspace when I do 1.7, is the same reason. Is you usually get a lot of problems running things, and I don't think it's... I'll have to look into it, because what I have a theory is going on is that we have the wrong version in here, and that's what's going on, because I think JEI actually is functional for 1.12. It's just the wrong version maybe getting downloaded because, well, we've been trying to throw scripts together for quite a while. I want to say third time's a charm, but I think we've launched more than 3 times now. Hopefully my mic didn't pick that can being opened up. Try to open that up underneath the table, and then I realized it's a wood table, so it doesn't matter. The sound's going to go right through it. I am thinking about actually building some soundboards to help with noise cancellation, especially from this computer right next to me. I found a really cool video that this guy took 3 towels, layered them up, sewed them together, put them over a picture frame, and it worked. Yeah, we still don't. The recipe's still not working. Although I didn't really toy with the recipe, so. Yeah, so something's not registering correctly because it's literally saying the items are missing. So I want to go ahead and do... You know, actually, what I'm probably not doing correctly is I probably need to come up here and go Minecraft Forge.eventbus.register this. I think it's how that works. Actually, let me take a look at this guy. It's sitting in the Forge system, so this is part of Forge itself. So this is not FML, so yeah, it would be on the Forge bus. Although, to be honest, I think both of them use the same bus now, so it doesn't really matter. We're going to try this again. And we'll put a break line there, so that way I know for sure it is fired off. And then I'm just going to have to hear later, either today or sometime this week, do a little bit more research into how 1.12 has changed and works, and it's going to take me a while because I'm still trying to catch up on 1.8 through 1.11 as well. And a little bit hard too, because the plan is I think I'm going to be supporting 1.7 and I think a 1.11 as my 2 major versions, and then everything else is just going to be when I get around to updating, I'll update it. Yeah, it looks like that may have fixed it. So go ahead and hit play. And we'll just keep an eye on for there. If we don't see the recipe error, then it fixed. I was just missing a registry thing. You would think by default the mod class would be registered if this is becoming mandatory. To be honest, if this is mandatory, really what we should have is an interface called like iMod that we're required to implement. And that way we actually get all of this stuff in there. Because with Java 8, you can default it all out. And it's very similar if we come back over here and I was showing off modular force field system. is that I actually do have something called iMod that does some basic information. This is actually used by my JSON system in order to get this thing to register your content with. There's also iJSON-JMod, which allows you to do the same thing, except you can specify a different manager for JSON content versus your normal content. It also allows you to load handlers, so you can customize how JSON stuff is loaded for your mod. I want to say this actually worked. Yeah, we're good. Now I am going to have to specify probably a Forge version on this, which I hope I can get working properly. Okay, let's see. Yeah, stuff's here. Recipe, I mean, these are looking good. I don't have JEI, so I can't actually check the recipes manually. By the way, the recipes are probably still broken. I need to figure out how to do MBT. Did it just unlock like a ton of new recipes? Oh yeah, okay. So let's just check to make sure the base recipe works, and then we'll come back and we'll probably do MBT recipes here later. So yeah, we get oak shears. They're not stackable. They do work though. Let's actually just go run around real quick in game mode 0 and just clip things. Can I clip this stuff? No. Actually, nah, it didn't work. So I can clip these guys, which is cool. Does the grass work? Yep, grass works. And I just need to find a sheep for the last functionality. Sheepy, 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 sheep. So it's actually made specifically for sheep to get wool. Really early game in quantity. It was not made for trees and stuff, it was just made for sheep. Still made as a joke mod though, because I mean, wooden everything. Because I did the wooden buckets and then wooden shears and then wooden rails. I don't really know what else. I think I could do wooden armor because I don't think it's a thing. Or is it a thing? Game mode 1. I think it's Tinkers adds wooden armor. Yes, it's not a thing. So I can go ahead and make my own mod for that. Which wouldn't be a horrible thing. Especially if I go and do the same thing I did with the shears and make a whole bunch of aesthetics. I can't find a sheep. You know what, I'm not thinking this through. I could spawn egg things. I think miscellaneous is where they're at now. Sheep. Yep, there we go. So it works. So yeah, we're good on that one. So it's updated for 1.12 again. So I'll go ahead and get that version pushed out here sometime later. I'm not going to really rush it. Need to load it up though. So 1.12 wooden shears. Updated for latest Forge changes. Recipes still do not support MBT. Yeah, look at this huge git change column. It's like, I haven't had a mod that has had this much of a git change history to it in a while, where you have this many branches. And all the mods are going to look like that pretty soon. It's going to be hectic, to say the least. We got that, so we're going to go ahead and bounce back to ICBM. So go ahead and close down this workspace, and we'll just sit here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this guy. So we'll do debug ICBM only, and we'll just take a look at a few things. Why do I have all this information right here? Oh yeah, he's saying you still need to implement annotations. I want to get around that eventually. I'm going to be creating something called a dummy mod container. That'll do a lot of that work for me. It'll also do a lot of the registry calls for items and stuff. Although, to be honest, even though I have my own @mod thing that, or iMod interface, it's actually obsolete because I'm switching over to an entire JSON registry system. So you make a JSON file that goes, okay, I have an entity, or I have an item, or I have a block. It does all the work for you. So there's no more registry systems. This actually means the only thing I'll have to do is implement that annotation in the base abstract mod here, and there will be no work required. A lot of these mods will simplify out. MFS I actually need to come through here and work on, because we have way too many cards in here. And I want to merge these all down into one item, which I know people are not going to be happy with, but trying to think of the best way to handle that, actually. I think what I'll do is I'll push a version that encodes itself real quick, and I'll leave that up on the thing for about a month, and then I'll come back in here and I'll merge them all to one item. And then what will happen is the item will have an encoded record that goes, okay, I was a card link is what I was. And then it'll go, okay, I need to then transition myself to the new item, but then I need to make sure my metadata matches or something. To be honest, having this many items isn't a bad thing, but I want to get rid of this because we want to add more items and more options, and I don't know. We'll think of something. What may end up happening is I may just say screw it and I leave all the items here because I do want to make a new version of MFFS down the road. It's not going to be a replacement. It's actually not even going to share the same name with MFFS. It's going to have some different name. And the reason I want to do this is I want to focus on huge multi-block machines, and they don't fit well with the old style, so it's best to make them their own mod. That way people who like the old style can play with the old style, and the people who want the new style can play with the new style, and you can play with both of them at the same time if you want to, as I'm going to make sure the MFFS, the old version, sticks to just being small force fields to protect small bases and walls and stuff, but then the new version is going to be designed for really large protection. And yeah. Anyways, last time we worked on this, by the way, we went ahead and did some work on that. And I need to make sure, you know what, I need to do this real quick, because I'm going to forget every single time we do this. But I got to get that anti-rain mod put back into my run folder. So that'll be SMB, no more rain. I got to get that pushed up the curse too while I'm at it. But yeah, that'll next time we run, it'll turn the rain off automatically for me. So, see what's what we want to work on. So we do want to get the medium missile implemented, but then there are some other things to still work on. I still need to test to see if a lot of the launching systems will work. We did get the concrete, by the way. I did put a poll or vote out kind of on what people liked. A lot of people did note they liked the new version for these textures, so we're going to keep the new ones. And I'm not going to add the old ones back. As a lot of people made their case pretty appropriately. It's the grain of the textures, which if I pull this out real quick, was the reason why the new ones look better. So there's actually this consistent grain you can see here. In the old version, the edge panels here were going against that grain, which made it look really bad. So you see how this has now got a consistent grain no matter what it's being done, which actually makes life really nice for people, according to what I've been told. So let's see what's... we didn't test the standard silo last time we were working on this stuff. It's good to see the renders working. Might I note this is a JSON-driven object, and you can't notice the difference. It looks really nice. Everything looks really good for it. There's really no problems with it. We'll go ahead and stick a missile in the tube. Okay, so there looks like there is some slight rendering problem. Well, actually, no, I don't take it back. Nah, I do need to fix that. And I think that has to be fixed in the JSON file. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And then we'll make an adjustment, and then we'll restart the client to see if that change actually takes effect. So go content, missiles. Actually, not missiles, what I don't want to look at. I want to look at launchers, and no, that's not it either, because that's the actual launcher itself. It's silos and then standard. Okay. So we get a missile offset, so we got 0.25 is what I programmed it as. That's definitely more than 0.25. This is actually probably 7.5. Or actually, we're just going to do 7 because I kind of do want it to stick slightly into the block. Because how this is supposed to work is this is actually a smoke catch for the exhaust fumes, and it's supposed to blow the exhaust fumes out like one of these sides down a series of tubes, and it'll go out your base. That way you don't have any fire inside the silo tubes. Because after all, I've expressed this many times, but people don't seem to catch on to this. The reason why the silo tube is not finished for this is you're actually supposed to encase this tube in concrete for it to be functional. And I don't want to just use flat concrete for this, as I want to actually implement certain blocks for this. But then, of course, you would have a side of this would be exposed. So you have tubes that will come out from here. I don't really have any tubes, but I guess I could use the missile station as an example. So what you would have is you would have some kind of tube coming out of here. And it would come out, and you would have then, say, for example, an exhaust hatch. So that way it's blowing exhaust out of this. And it's out of your base. That way you don't have... fumes going on your base, because the fumes will be really important as we will be implementing a gas system here later. And what the gas system will use, it'll start keeping track of different combinations of chemicals in the air. So you'll have oxygen, of course, but then you'll keep track of things like nitrogen, carbon dioxide, monoxide. It'll keep track of poisonous gases, and a lot of the rockets will let off poisonous gases that will affect the players. So if you're exposed to them, your character is going to get nauseous, dizzy, pass out, could potentially die from just simply being exposed to rocket fumes. But yes, that's... I guess we're going to go ahead and clear this out so that way when we restart we can actually see that, and I can see if the changes actually take effect. So git run, debug, and that'll load up. And we're at 35 minutes, so we're doing pretty good. No one showed up to the stream yet, so that's expected as I didn't announce this one ahead of time. The only reason we're streaming right now is I'm awake, and normally I'm not awake this early. I usually get up a little later. At least that's what it's been happening the last few days, is that I wouldn't go to sleep until like 9 o'clock, and then I would sleep for like 3 hours, get up, do work. But I finally, some way, restored my sleep schedule, although I got up at 2 in the morning, so we'll see how far I can make it into the evening. So what may happen is I may do my stream at like 1, stream for like 2 hours, and then pass out of sleep because there's only so long I can go with operating on a few hours of sleep a day. Unfortunately, I do have other things to do, so I may try to push that envelope as far as possible, because I do want to hit that exam up and get started on it. Get it done, I think. I'm going to check my email while this is launching, because I want to make sure I got the date right on when that's due. Okay, team assignments. Okay, I have till the 29th. Awesome. Okay, that's what day I thought it was, actually. So I want to get it done by Wednesday, that way I don't have to sit there and rush it Thursday. Because I like this professor. He's really flexible on due dates. Technically, normally that would have been due on the 25th, but he's like, hey, I'm not going to grade it till then anyway, so you guys just turn it in whenever. Oh yes, that looks really, really well. So this is JSON driven, by the way, so if somebody wants to make their own little silo, they can. All they got to do is just clone this file and get their own models and stuff, and you can make your own custom silos. So if you want to make it look like a bunny, or you want to do like a Thaumcraft inspired one, I know there's a couple people that were talking to me that they really want to do a lot of Thaumcraft inspired ICBMs, because, well, magic and missiles combine together really well. I agree with them, as I did have an add-on for Thaumcraft for ICBM for a very short period of time that I do actually want to get back into updating again, because just spreading Tane around the map is so fun with ICBMs. But that's good, so I guess you know what we could do real quick is why I'm trying to think of what else to do is just start testing to make sure that everything is functional. If I can toss everything back on the creative tab here. You know what, I still need to get the link button working. That's another thing that needs to be done. But let's go ahead and just do this the old school way. Here we go. And by the way, you can link in both directions. So you can link from the silo to this, from this to the silo. This is the only one that works on is the data link system is not set up for that. Yeah, it's set up here, so that's cool. Let's go ahead and get a radar gun so we're not going to nuke ourselves. Let's say, I don't like that tree over there, so we're going to blow that one up. No particular reason why I don't like the tree, I just want to blow it up. There we go. And that fired off a creative mode engine, so no fire or smoke or anything. Well, these will generate a lot of smoke, and there's potentially going to be particle effects that will be generated in mass quantity as well. And if you have an exhaust tube, the particle effects will not be generated, and what you'll see is just a little bit of smoke come out of the top of the tube, but most of the smoke will be redirected somewhere else. Keep in mind, by the way you develop your smoke tubes is going to be allow people to see where your missile silos are, as there will be a thermal signature that'll pop up for several minutes, so that way when we add thermal satellites here later and a few other things, those will actually come into play in detecting where people are sitting at. That way you can use things like thermal imagery combined with, say, computercraft to pick out spots on the map that are showing really hot signs of activity. By the way, I added that randomizer to this. This looks so nice with that randomization on the damage. Although it doesn't seem to be working as well on the sides over here. But it does leave a little bit of a distorted crater at the bottom, which is nice, and it does the edges here. It's working really, really well. I mean, there's a lot of things we still have to do for these mods and stuff to get them working. Like, I want this to kick dirt up and throw it everywhere. There's still a shockwave to be produced. I still want it to leave, like, an ambient effect of some kind. Audio is a big thing. We haven't even got anywhere near getting any audio files for any of the explosives. Just way too much work. Speaking of which, on that case, I'm still looking for developers. We've basically lost all of our developers at this point, except for myself. So yeah, looking for developers. So let's see. What else do we want to test real quick? I mean, I've already tested the small silos. I know they work. I've tested the magazines. I know they work. But we're going to go ahead and test it again just because, well, gotta think of something to do right now. I need to put an animation on these guys. It would be a little bit nicer to watch the missile actually move from tube to tube. Well, I gotta get that synchronized, and I need to kind of... I want to put a conveyor belt animation at the bottom here, so that way it looks a lot nicer. Right now we just got the arrow to indicate what direction it moves. But think of like a conveyor belt going down the middle, and you'd actually see it spin and animate. That would enhance the render time, so it would actually mess with rendering. I know the stream isn't picking this up, but up in the top left I've got an FPS counter. Right now it's sitting at 60, but it would affect it very slightly, because if I actually move around, it does actually drop my FPS. Oh yeah, so that's all good. Another thing I'm also thinking about doing is reworking how the launcher frames are working out. One of the plans I'm trying to think of, if it would be good, is to kind of make this entire thing optional, but I have yet to figure out. The thought process I got right now, which I'm going to go ahead and show off in Paint, because Paint is awesome for doing this. Not really, it's actually probably the worst tool you could think of. But say we have a launch pad, we have a missile. You kind of want to just be able to launch the missile on a launch pad with no assistance whatsoever. As most people don't understand this, but modern missiles really don't require much of anything to function. They, more or less, as long as there's a guidance system in here, an engine, so yeah, just like guidance. Of course, you have your warhead at the end too. I feel like just kind of drawing for the hell of it right now. You have your engine. So as long as you have an engine and a guidance system, the missile will work. Warheads are even optional. You don't even need those for missiles to function. It's just, if you want it to explode, you need a warhead. So they don't require supports. They don't require special electrical equipment on the ground. As long as you fuel them up and you gave them a target and you click the launch button, it'll move. And the launch system could be literally anything. It could literally be some guy walking up to this with the and pressing a button on the side of the missile, and it would just lift off and take off the ground and just go wherever it wanted to go. So that's kind of what I want to reflect on, but because of how Minecraft is sort of more or less designed, I have two options of how I can do this. I could make a block, which is a launcher pad. So you'd have this little block here that you would have to place, and then you place the missile above it. That is a really solid option, as that would allow you to, say for example, have a pipe coming off of it, and then you could actually load up your launch pad that way, which would fit with the Minecraft style and theme a lot better, although it would take away from the realism a decent amount. The other option is to just make this a missile tile. So you would actually have a tile, so you could walk up and you can place it. And my theory right now is to do both of these. And the reason I'm thinking about doing both is that you could use this guy just to place the missile. It doesn't have to be anything special. He's just there to put the missile into the world. And then you have an actual tile that sits there. And that tile is your missile. And he actually exists. And this also lets you do a lot of other cool things. For example, say you want to store a whole bunch of missiles, but you don't want to use a tile like a missile magazine to do it. Just place the missile in a world. You'd have a bunker full of missiles, and it would look really cool. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would figure out really creative ways to build with that. So what I'm thinking is we do that, because I already have the tile for this. There's already something called a crashed missile, which is designed for missiles that are on the ground. And I could just take this, recode it, and restructure it a little bit to allow for missiles to launch from that, because after all, the launch code is nothing special. You just spawn a missile in the world and it goes out and where it goes where it wants to go. This would also simplify these guys a lot too, because this guy right here actually handles all the launching mechanics for this as well crafting. So what you could do with this guy instead is he just relays a command to this, and this actually does all the work. So then this would just become a command block, 100% optional. Most people would just use it decoratively, and then these guys would just definitely become decorative blocks. So what would happen is you would have one of these you could craft, and you'd have these, and I'm definitely know for sure people want to use these decoratively. I've had several requests to make them decorative only blocks. Right now this actually is a decorative only block. You can do whatever you want with it. It has no functionality on it whatsoever. I don't even think it has a tile attached to it. Actually, no, it has a tile because we couldn't get the ISBR to work correctly. So it is actually render. The problem is you can't get the top piece, but we could metadata drive that, so you can. And we could actually add a lot more things. I know we're going to be adding a version of this that actually has a fluid pipe that goes through the middle of it, so you can refuel missiles. So that what may end up happening to these guys. These may end up turning into fuel systems only, and a few other things as well. Would fit really well into logic, so that way this is just a tile. And then when we add the clamps and stuff, so we actually are doing supports. The only use of the supports is going to be when we add them is A, they're going to be decorative, but B, when an explosion goes off next to your missile, there's a chance the missile will fall over. I'm not going to do wind and stuff. I literally am against the idea of wind knocking things over, because with reports I've read from things like NASA and the Army doing missiles and stuff, it takes a decent amount of gust of wind to knock a missile over. It's not like just a normal breeze will knock it over. Even though these things are really, really big, they're not super well supported, even when you go look at launch platforms. I mean, they are supported because they do get really high gust of wind, so I'm kind of contradicting myself when I say this, but adding a mechanic where wind can knock over missiles just feels a little retarded gameplay-wise, because you'll have a novice user who will go put this down, and then as soon as he's done putting it down, a gust of wind will blow through and knock it over before he can even put the supports up. And I know for sure there's a lot of YouTubers who will do that, and then they'll rage, and then unfortunately I will take the brunt of that rage, not from the YouTuber himself, but from people who watch that YouTuber that'll come to my channel going, "Why did you do this? It made this so-and-so upset." This happened to me in the past, so that's the reason I know it is a thing, is because back when I was getting $1 million for ICBM, when I was working for Calclavia, we did get people like that actually come into the channel because, well, that was when we had more people in our channel than Forge has in their IRC channel. Which, by the way, if we actually pop open the Forge IRC, you can actually see there's only 221 people. At some times when we still worked on ICBM back in 125, we had upwards of 800 people on our channel. It was ridiculous. I say I miss those days, but I really don't, because I spent most of my time answering bug reports. I barely got any work done. So let's see. I don't know if we want to start on that approach right now, because that's a big major rewrite. We're already in one rewrite as it is. I'm trying to get JSON content out the door, and I don't want to get stuck in another rewrite cycle. So let's focus on just getting the medium missile online. Now, what we could do with the medium missile, though, is use it to prototype this new code, as the medium missile is sizable. Let me go ahead and pull it out real quick so we can look at it. Now, I don't have an actual missile, but what I did do is I took one of my decoratives and I made my decorative render the missile. So these are decoratives, by the way. These actually are things you will be able to craft, but they'll basically be made out of wood, and they're designed to let you visually present a missile without expendituring the massive cost for one. But you see how big that guy is. So I need to figure out some way to put him on a launch pad without making it just look bad. Because, I mean, this is a really cool model, even though I've been taking crap from a few people for having such a high detail model. I love the look of it, and I don't give a shit what anybody else says about it. It looks impressive. It's amazing. But right now, if we go with our current launcher standard, what we're going to end up having to do is you place this down, and this is, guys, just going to have to act as the base, and we're going to have a 3x3 cleared out, and you'll just have to do this. And this just kind of feels, I mean, it works. I mean, this is how we were planning on how doing the mod the entire time, but it feels a little boring when you think about it, that you're going to just always have this structural system that you have to build no matter what. just to launch these missiles, and it takes a bit of the creativity out of it. One of the things when I redesigned ICBM from the classic version, one of the things I was aiming for is to promote as much creativity as possible, because the old version was stagnant. It lacked creativity. The only spot that I could be creative with is making different decorative missiles, but then players couldn't be creative because you had the old launchers. So if we actually pop open the old launchers, these guys, which I dropped it, their models were complex, and you have to sit here and look at this and ask yourself, how do I build around this to make it look good? And what most players ended up doing was hiding it, and I was like, that just completely defeats the whole point of having a model on something if a lot of players are just going to hide this behind a wall in order to make their builds look good. Because after all, Minecraft is a building game, so you want to promote building as much as possible. Plus, when you include the fact you have to have a console and a frame behind this, it actually makes hiding it pretty bad, to where you have to do something like this. And then people build computer terminals to access them. I mean, after all, you actually can get this to do pretty good if you actually spend some time with it. I know I've built a lot of hidden launchers before. My favorite way to do a hidden launcher, by the way, is just to pop a piston out and piston right there, and just do this. Which, by the way, with the new version, you can still do this. This is a complete valid solution. The cool thing with the new version, though, is these guys are a lot smaller, so they're a lot easier to hide. And this is how it should have been. Because when you look at this old system here, why have these support frames on the side? They don't really do much. The only realistic reason for these to be there is they are supports. But then at the same time, even though you were supported, then for some reason when Cal Clavi designed it, he was like, hey, let's add, if I can find the tab, here it is. Let's add these support frames in the back just to increase accuracy. And he kind of made a mini game out of it a little bit, where you had to figure out how you wanted to handle your stuff. And almost everybody built this, so it kind of felt like a waste of time. I actually told him he probably should have removed it multiple times. And before he even added it, he did talk to me and go, okay, should we add a support frame? I'm like, yeah, it sounds okay. But then I didn't really understand what he was talking about. He added a whole new block just to support the back of it. And then, of course, you had a console you had to add, and it felt like a waste. And when it came to the design, I'm not saying what he did was bad, because after all, man, the old version of ICBM was an amazing mod, and I still get people who love the thing. But the new version, I kind of want to always take a different direction with it. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to implement this way here. I do plan to implement multiple launchers anyways, so having multiple different ways to launch the missile is okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll implement this version, and we'll come back in and we'll do the other one I was talking about, which is the in-world tiles. And then we still need to do rail-based systems, so I need to do a cart that can pick this guy up. There's so much stuff that needs to be done. So we'll work on this. Cool thing is, and you know, I'm going to save this. It's a really crappy picture, but I like crappy pictures. Like a Picasso. Not actually comparing myself to his, but I love to make crap like that. Okay, so we have a spot made for the medium missile already. The reason you don't see a creative tab for it is because the creative tabs are manually made. They're not automated. So let's go ahead and initialize all the code we need. I'm actually going to copy the micro when I do this, because the micro is probably the most simplistic render out of all of them. It'll be the easiest one to actually work on. So get this set up, and then all we have to do is just really quickly rename this guy to medium missile, replace all. And we need to rename, of course, our registry name as well, and then get that fixed. And then there's a few other things we actually need to implement too. We're actually missing some stuff out of this one. Forgot the default marks and all that stuff. I don't think the default actually does anything right now, but I might as well make sure it's in there. It doesn't hurt to actually not have it in there. So let's see. Yep, render, yep. We don't have an icon yet. Oh, yeah, actually we do have an icon. I just forgot about that. And then I think this stuff is the same. There's literally no difference between all the models render. So, yeah, that's good. We are going to have to register some global textures, which we'll do up here. The only reason we're doing global textures for all of our stuff is that it works. And by the way, when you do global textures for your own stuff, for those who actually do make mods, you don't have to make an asset folder like this. The only reason I'm doing it this way is I want to do it this way. Anytime you make a texture via the JSON system, it's automatically a global texture. So that's kind of just how it works. And we want to get a medium missile. Okay. So we'll go ahead and throw this in here. And the advantages, by the way, of doing global stuff. Actually, you know what? We already have them registered. Right there it is. I'm like sitting here trying to make a new one, and it's like, it's already there. So medium missile, so they'll both be registered. So this will render. I am going to guaranteely have to toy with these renders here. Not by a huge amount, though. To be honest, you're not supposed to hold this stuff in your hands. Yeah, that looks good. Now let's go ahead and make a creative tab. What do we have recording time? Yeah, whatever. I'm going to let this run just into whatever time it goes. We're at an hour right now. And if I can remember, yeah, it's in here. So I hit cancel on that. So it's creative tab missiles. But then this is registered in a different spot. I don't remember exactly where it's at. Oh, it's right there, missile tabs. So go ahead and just make another one. Because, I mean, it's not like it matters. We still got 2 more sizes, by the way, to add, because we have to add a large and there will be an extra large. So, large will be our 32 and extra large will be a 64. The extra large will be the last one implemented in ICBM, and then the only one we're going to add beyond that is going to be some Atlas style rockets, but those will be a part of a space mod. They will be an add-on for ICBM, as I don't really want to spend a huge amount of time making a new mod, so that way I'm just going to make a dependency on ICBM. That way I can grab all of ICBM's code to make the space mod work properly. And a lot of the mechanics that'll be in the space mod will be functional inside ICBM, and the reason I'm doing this has to do with the fact that our very first space stuff that was ever made was done by the Air Force. And this is kind of what ICBM is themed after, is a lot of the Air Force stuff. I haven't put a lot of that stuff into the mod yet, but you'll start to see as we go, it'll be more and more Air Force themed with a lot of the content. And then the space mod will be NASA themed heavily. And then, of course, we may do some U.S. Army stuff as well, as some of the earliest missiles were implemented by the U.S. Army before the Air Force was kind of a thing. After all, we did capture missiles from the Nazis during World War II, and the Army was the first people to kind of take those and try to weaponize them and do things with them. And then eventually you got the Air Force that made their own programs. And I might do a history plot line of this later, because it does fascinate me, although I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on it. The main reason of doing a history timeline is because I do plan to put a research tree into all my mods eventually to help people progress. It's not going to be a gating research tree, so it's going to be something you just really quickly go through, and it's going to be filled with more like Thaumcraft than anything else. But that'll show up, and we can go ahead and start to test to see if the renders are going to work. Then we'll do the launcher probably at our stream at 1 o'clock. It would be a good time to do that. Big thing is, though, the first version of this is just going to be a primitive version of the medium missile, because I'm going to have to come through and do stage mechanics here later. The medium is the first one that has a stage on it, so it will stage separate. I want to say it has 3 stages, but I think it's only 2 stages. I'm trying to think of exactly how that is set up. I think I have a picture on my desktop. No, I didn't download that one. I do have one of different missiles. I do plan to implement some of the SpaceX rockets into the space mod when we get them. Although I got to look up the trademark and copyright rights on those to see if I'm allowed to do it. I definitely am going to do the Atlas one, because I'm pretty sure that is public domain. But, yeah, what was... Hold on. ICBM flight mechanics. I'm mainly just looking for a picture real quick. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. So this is kind of how the missiles are going to separate out. So you'll have a stage that'll be back here, and then you'll slowly break apart, and at the very end it's going to release the warhead down on the ground. The one that Alex gave me is a 2-stage, I'm pretty sure. So you'll have a main stage at the bottom, and this will take you pretty much all the way up. And then there's one more stage I believe that runs, but I can't think of if the warhead separates from the stage or not. I'm trying to remember what rocket he based it on. This one actually looks like it was what it was at. It's a 16-meter missile, so I'll have to think about it for a second. I think I got it documented somewhere what missile he based it on, and I may look up how its flight mechanics work. Well, I need to do some more research here because even though I'm the one that's working on this mod, I actually don't know as much as I should know about missiles in order to get them to work. After all, I'm more or less doing this mod because I love competitive gameplay, not because I'm obsessed with missiles. I actually am more obsessed with automation, and I love the idea of missiles when it comes to automation, just because there's something cool you can build, put together, assemble, and various other things. Plus, competitive gameplay is amazing. So we got that rendering. Now we have a new tab whose icon is not working properly. But if I put this in my hand, my face is going to be blocked and my body is going to be blocked by a missile. Yeah, this is why I said that you're never going to really hold these in your hand, but I am going to scale them down so that realistically they'll render properly. To show an example of this is the standard actually does render somewhat realistically. Oh, it's got some mood lighting to it. What? Oh, I know what's up with it. It's some coloration failures. So I'm okay with that. That's a small bug that I can overlook. But yeah, this guy actually doesn't render half bad. So we're going to scale the standard down to render, or the medium down to render properly. Think of how the best way to do this. I guess I could just use the VE render, load data. VE, oh, it's VE debug render. Did not find. Oh yeah, because it's prefixed. That's the part I was missing. And then we want to grab this and we want to load the state up. Item dot. I don't think it's third person, but I think it is. Oh yeah, it's equipped. So yeah, I was right. It's not third person, even though that's basically what you're doing, third person. Okay, so literally what we're going to do is just go, okay, set scale 0.2. Hey, look, I'm holding a model rocket. That works perfect, actually. Because the only people that will ever have these in their hand are admins, and I'm pretty sure an admin doesn't want crap poking through the ceiling when he's walking around with something in his hand. So we'll go ahead and we'll set all the scales to 0.2. And it looks like the scale was actually increased for this, but that's a problem with me copying various code. Now first person, I want to say doing a scale of 0.2 would work as well. I will have to reposition things, but we're going to focus on doing equipped first, getting it rendering properly, and then we'll switch back. So we then want to do set offset. So we want, I mean, the Y position is good. I think the X is good, so we just want to bring the Z back. Oh, is that not working as intended? Oh, no, it's moving away from me. I always hate doing render code. We are literally watching a perfect example of what happens when you scale something and then try to translate it. Sorta. And it's not perfect, but I'm okay with this. It's enough for a screenshot. You know what I probably should do is make a decorative item you can place down that is literally just somebody, or just literally this but scaled down. I'm pretty sure somebody would enjoy it. Might even just make a plastic toy for the Arctilix mod for this too as well, because I mean the Arctilix mod, when I do finish it, does plan to have industries in it, and some of the industries will be toy manufacturing, because your citizens will actually buy toys and stuff. Yeah, that works. So that was 424. So when we go item equipped, yep, 424. Okay. Now there's some corrective code I probably should write to fix this, because what's happening is that I have to do a multiplier on this. So this would have normally been 0.4, 0.4, 0.2, but because this was reduced down from 2 to 0.2, there's a 10 multiplier downward. These need to be 10 multiplier upward. It's a problem with kind of how OpenGL is implemented without any kind of helping code. You were given like raw pretty much access to things. And a lot of engines build their own corrective code for this, and I think I need to do the same thing. I've already done this for a lot of stuff now. After all, I built corrective code to fix rotations down here. I just need to do the same thing with offset and everything to go ahead and make it just that much easier. Although the problem is if I ever do change it, I will have to create a way to override it to turn it on and off, because I know there will be old models that it won't work with. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so we want to load up the next one. So load state, item.first. And let's get out of this so we can get the first person. So first thing we want to do is set our scale to 0.2, because that's what we have in the file. Yeah, that's not too bad. And let's go ahead and set the offset. And just go ahead and do 0, 0, 0 to level it out. And let's move this over by 4. And that's the wrong direction, so we would do -4. And I'm going to say this one is -4 as well. That's actually pretty good. To just go with what we already have, I'm going to do a 2 as well on this. And that looks nice, actually. So let's do -4 to -4. And you notice how this code is pretty much the same down over here? So that tells me that, yeah, that multiplier would be a really good ideal. And everything else looks pretty good. So now let's try the dropped item. Now this is where things are going to get weird, because watch this. Look how big that thing is now. So we're going to definitely want to scale the entity down. And let me make sure I'm on fancy graphics too. Yep, I am. Okay, the reason I want to do fancy graphics is when you drop stuff, there's a shadow below things, and I want to see that shadow when I'm working on the models, because that tells me if I'm centered or not. Okay, so we do want to set the scale, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same scale for this, but we're going to load it. So this is item entity. And then we're going to set scale. 0.2. Look at that little baby model. When you think about how big this missile is, it's 16 meter tall and about 2 meters wide, and you shrink it down to this just to make it work in Minecraft's logic, it's funny. Anyways, set translation, or offset. I keep having to remind myself I'm talking about offset here. Almost got it. I think a 3 is probably better. Apparently 3 is not enough. 4 didn't work. 5. 6 is going to work. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks so nice. Bet somebody can make a GIF out of that and put that up somewhere. Get a pretty good kick out of it. So we got that working. We're going to have to test its rendering as an entity. I'll do that in a second. What do we end up using for just 5? So yeah, we got the entity done. This is actually going pretty smooth. Usually when I do this stuff, it takes me hours sometimes to get this correct. Because I now have commands I can fire off, it's so much faster. I kind of wish I had done this years ago, because there have been times when I've been working on ICBM that I frustratingly just spent 8 hours just trying to get something like this to look nice. And with the commands, we just did that in like a couple minutes. I did literally hours worth of work in minutes because the software I've developed is saving me that much time. I only wish more developers would use my software though, because I've watched other developers spend days of their lives just trying to do exactly what I just did, and I've already done the work, and I'm more than happy to let people actually use this stuff. I don't really care as long as you make a good product and treat users pretty well. So we got that good. So I guess the next thing to do is test how big a medium missile explosion is going to be with a 40 radius. It's going to be ridiculous. If you go up to here, this thing has a 22, and you've seen the holes that thing produces. We're going to test the bigger one. And the cool thing is I added the rocket launcher here, I think, I don't want to say yesterday, it might have been the day before, to actually fire these now. Look at that. Boom. That's a 40 radius. It's actually moving pretty well when you think about it. Although I do need to optimize down the code a lot more. For what it is, it's doing good. There's been versions of the Pathfinders that I've written, there's been versions Kyle Klavi has written that the whole game would shutter for multiple minutes at a time to make a crater this size. Although I definitely need to work on the Brep First Pathfinder to kind of make itself more circle-like, and I have a theory of how to do that. Oh look, there's a dungeon down there, it's going to get wiped out. Why is it still playing that particle effect? Better yet, why can't I see that from a distance? Probably Minecraft logic. I think Minecraft logic limits the particle effect to like within 16 blocks of yourself in order to make the game run faster. I need to figure out a way to bypass that. It's going to prevent the nuke from actually looking good if I ever finish it. So that worked. We didn't really get a look at the model. I do have a solution for this. I did this yesterday to look at the missile models and make sure they were functioning well. Oh yeah, we're only on layer 8 or 2. This is going to run for... It's doing about 1 second a layer right now. It's doing a lot of blocks, is a way to put it. Definitely need to optimize that code down more. I think if I bypass the world code and go directly to the chunk code, I can shave a half a second off this. Let's see. So we want to go... One, we want to switch to something other than antimatter in case I shoot myself with it. Fucking 16-meter long cake. Actually, you know what? This is a good opportunity to test to see if the crashed missile version will work well. And I'm using the wrong item here. So grab this guy. Try this. So we'll see what the crashed version of this looks like. Yeah, it did not render at all what I needed it to. It still looks pretty good. I like how the back of this actually looks pretty good. Alex did a really good job on modeling this. I mean, there's people that complain about me having high-res models, but when you actually look at the stuff in game, it's so nice. Although I think I'm going to drop the pixelation on this and make it more blocky, make it look a little bit closer to how this guy is. It's a little bit more blocky on this. Although I need to, on this guy in particular, get rid of those stupid gray lines. I added them in because I like the way they looked, and then now they just look bad. As you see, this guy still got distinct lines on this, and it looks okay with the distinct lines. This guy's lines are way too distinct. And that's my fault as I edited that texture to implement that. So yeah, that's that works. So now I need to go and do what I was going to do, which I actually need to... I don't want to close this because I might come back to working on that. But I need to pop open the missile file. And there's a line I put in here which is just literally set velocity 000. And this is how you can pause a missile midair and actually work on it. And I think we got an error, so we're going to have to restart. Let's see if it worked. If it worked, then we don't restart it. No, it didn't take. So for some reason, it tries to reload JSON files even though they're not reloadable. And I believe this is because I've actually got it set to run as a source code file in order for it to reload properly. But it causes issues. At least we can check to see if a lot of our edits took. So that's something we can test and work on a little bit there. And then as soon as we get this done, we'll be testing to make sure the Entity runs. I'm just going to call it for this episode here. And then we'll come back here later today and work on it more after I get some other activities done. There we go. That was in regard. I was looking at my phone trying to catch up with updates. Like, I look at my phone, and in the short period of an hour I've been recording, I've got 20 notifications just from Twitter. And then I got another 10 from YouTube. Nothing worth noting, it's just some people going like, hey, oh yeah, that texture looks pretty good, or that model's pretty nice. Hopefully I'm going to stick out some more tweets trying to show off the work we're doing, as I know I've been slacking a little bit on that. Sometimes I forget to take screenshots while I'm working and use them. It's one of those things I actually really regret. When I was working for CalClavio on a lot of the mods, I almost never actually took screenshots, and I actually do not have a lot of visual records of the work I did. And there's a lot of cool things we made. For example, the antimatter creepers and stuff I always troll people with, those were a real thing, except I don't have any photographic evidence to show it off. Now, in the new version, they are a real thing too, by the way. For those who ever want to screw around with those, they are actually built into Volt's engine, and you can spawn an antimatter creeper if you know what you're doing, using NBT editing and a few other things. Yeah, there it goes, it worked. Okay, so we got a stationary object. And then the collision box in this guy is not going to be at all nice, by the way. If I can get it to render. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, the collision box on this is really small. I do plan to fix this, but it is going to take me a while. The obvious solution really quickly is I can just make this guy bigger. That way at least the hitbox is the same width as the missile, but that won't solve the problem fully. A good way to look at this, by the way, is you go look at cows, for example. That white box you're seeing is the hitbox on the cow. And if I actually go into third person mode here, that's my hitbox. In creative mode, it's fucked up for whatever reason, I don't know why. But see, you have this problem with hitboxes. They don't match the actual geometry. It's something I've been trying to work on for the last few years. I do have a solution for it, and I did do some testing here a couple years ago that I never finished working on. I'm going to revise that because I absolutely want to fix the collision boxes on these missiles. I also need to fix the engine trail smoke and a few other things. You see this smoke is showing up right on the back of that missile, or on the collision box, because that's the entity. The collision box is the actual physical entity right here, and the entity's spawn point is a little bit of the bottom block here. So you see the bottom panel right in the center is where the actual position of the entity is. So the smoke is literally spawning right on that spot. It needs to be translated to the end. I got to do some trigonometry to do that correctly. The collision boxes need a ton of trigonometry, and I'm not going to lie, I never took trigonometry at any point in my education, so it's going to be hard. Because it's the same reason why I struggled with physics for a while, is I literally don't know trig or geometry very well. But yeah, we'll get that done, so we'll move the smoke to the end here eventually. And the model looks good though, so it's actually perfectly centered and rotated. This is I guess I can thank Alex for doing a good job on this, because there's been a lot of times I've received models where they're not centered properly, but this guy is perfect. Now, of course, I'm going to have to toy with it, because this is where I was talking about the separation. We have 2 stages, and I think the warhead separates. I might be mistaken on the warhead separation. I'll have to talk to Alex eventually and ask him if the warhead is designed to separate from the missile, but that looks good. So we'll go ahead and call that for this episode, and I'll be back here later and see you guys then.